Where to this computer? Okay, the recording is up and running. So we can get started. There's not actually a whole lot on the agenda today, which I think everybody has seen so far. But basically, I wanted to start with a reminder to, per my email on Monday. We decided, because there was a lot of really rich discussion in the country of citizenship, section of the metadata application profile discussion page, we decided to leave it up to the community what the recommendation would be if you have not voted yet. That will close on Monday. That will close on Monday. We'd really appreciate your thoughts so far. So far there does seem to be consensus. People really do like having just work location, which works. Yeah. I think the main thing that we wanted to chat about during this working meeting, and then we can expand out to anything that you all would like to chat about. Because these working hours are also very new. The EMCO project is very new. There's not a whole lot like on the agenda yet. So, but we were wondering if it makes more sense to have an extensive page on reliable sources and what reliable sources are. As some context, this question was brought up on the discussion page for the metadata application profile because there were some questions about what would be a suitable source for saying that, say, Winston Churchill was born in whatever palace, I don't remember. And another person mentioning their concern that people would pull birth dates from data brokers and other questionable sources, which are totally valid concerns, right? And so I suggested on the page that maybe it would make sense to build something out. But then Sarah Caston, being the fantastic person that she is, reminded me that these pages already exist. And that maybe we can build upon them, but we don't have to work from scratch. But we wanted to talk through, like, is this something that we want as a community to do? And if so, is there any interest in doing it? Because now that I've seen those pages, I think we're good. I don't want to build these pages.
One thing I might say, Mary, is those pages are not necessarily readily accessible. They're quite large and things. Whether we could do a short list of things specific to a particular community or field, and I haven't thought through how we would do that, but perhaps just making it more manageable for people so they weren't ploughing through things that weren't particularly relevant for authorities, for instance, so that could be a little working party thing to do.
I think that's very reasonable. Perhaps every sub-project could have their own page with sourcing suggestions that are relevant for whatever they're working on. Also, don't mind me, I'm typing notes. I want to make sure that all of these excellent ideas are recorded.
Yes, for instance, in Australia, we would have some sites for Indigenous properties that we would not use. And, that might be good to highlight on a page like that, whereas we wouldn't go to that amount of detail on the global page.
Oh, Crystal, you don't need to raise your hand. There's only five of us.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut anyone off. Um, so Wiki Project Personal Pronouns has just made a new policy
Oh,
for specifically personal pronoun data in Wikidata, and we've included sort of guidelines as to like best practices basically for references for that part of Wikidata, like just for that property. And I think that some of the properties that we have, like there needs to be some sort of a best practice or policy that's in between the general, what is a good citation and the living people policy. Because for a lot of stuff, a newspaper article in the New York Times using um like saying something is a good reference. That's a source. But for personal pronoun data, it's not really. And a lot of personal demographic data falls into that kind of category where, okay, maybe we need to reconsider the way that sources are approached for this specific piece of data about people. Um, so maybe country of citizenship could be one of those where our group is like, hey, um, this is dangerous data to put online publicly. We should stop using it. Um, and setting up policies for Wikidata is easier than I thought. Um,
really?
but
I would
for
have thought it seemed terribly intimidating.
No, it's not so bad. Once you've established consensus, which can be the intimidating part, but once you know how to do it, you kind of know. So if we wanted to set up our own norms for what constitutes a reference for something like, uh, you know, there's ethnic group, and that's another one where I'm like, okay, just any reference isn't the same as, this person publicly identifying themselves as. So, we might want to think about doing that for country of citizenship, saying like, hey, it's EMCO's policy that we're doing it this way, but then also kind of build on that and see if we have consensus among other Wikidata users, and then you can just make it a policy. Um, I was surprised. Lane Raspberry taught us how to do it.
Don't mind me, I'm just taking down the notes.
So, was there mention where to put them, Crystal? Is there a place for that?
It's a category.
Ah.
So let me see. Now, of course, I've forgotten where we put our policy,
Is it,
but
is it this one that I've just put in the chat? I just found it by typing in WD personal pronouns. And there is a reference policy.
yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
so all it is you put this page documents a Wikidata policy, like the top part of that, and
Mhm.
then you put your policy, and then at the bottom you need to have category Wikidata policies, and you
Brilliant.
have to announce it on the
Yeah.
newsletter. And it should, and then in our discussion, we pointed to the request for comment where we established consensus, which that was the hard part that took years. Um, but personal pronouns wasn't very easy because different language groups treat them very differently.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I actually I think that English personal pronouns are very odd. And in other languages like Japanese, it is actually kind of rude sometimes to call someone by a third person pronoun. Then their name. So I'm glad that you were doing the heavy lifting on that really sensitive topic. I was kind of wondering though, like, how are you letting people know about this new policy? Because I see at the bottom of the page there's a template that says Wikidata policies and guidelines. And I kind of expected that that would, if I open it up, that that would be a huge list of all the policies, but I'm not seeing this one. So I guess how are you making sure that people know about this?
You click the category. So if
Uh,
you click on the category Wikidata policies, then it takes you to the category of Wikidata policies and it gives you all the policies. There's 22 of them.
oh, that's
And
genius.
um, there's some that everybody talks about all the time, like the living people policy or the notability policy. But then there's like other smaller ones. So this personal pronouns policy is a smaller one and it's newer. We announced it on the project newsletter. Um, so it got sent out that way. And then we're also going to be doing an implementation project where we clean up all the statements that use the property personal pronoun. Um, and we'll invite people to come and do edit-a-thons with us to do that because there's about 6,000 statements that each need to be looked at.
Believe that.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
So you have a newsletter for the Personal Pronouns Project.
No, it's the general Wikidata newsletter.
Oh, I was just trying to think if I get that. I don't think I get it.
I don't know.
Are you referring
I
to
don't
Where
the
do
think
I
I
one that
sign
gets
up for it?
posted on Project Chat every week?
I think so. Yeah.
I think, Benjamin, if
Let
you
me
want to
look.
subscribe to that one, I think it is,
I do.
I think it is the Wikidata listserv. Hold on.
Yeah, here you
Let me
go.
see. Oh,
Hmm.
thank you, Prue.
Oh, thank you. The Wikidata mailing list.
Oh, sorry, that's how to unsubscribe because I pinched it from the one that I'm already subscribed to. Let's see how to subscribe. Um, I'll find that for you.
Thanks,
It
Prue.
looks like it looks like I'm close because I'm at lists.wikimedia.org and it looks like I just have to go through and find. Here it
It's
is, Wikidata
called
discussion list for
Wiki.
the Wikidata project.
Well, it's actually a newsletter, which is let's have a look. It's called Weekly Summary.
Yeah, that's the one, Ben. But okay. So I'll add that policy to the Wikidata policies and guidelines template because it looks like even though there's 22 listed here, there's only 16 or so within the map template. So we want to make sure that people can find it. I'll do that after this meeting. Um, oh, oh, okay. You're just adding things to the notes. Much appreciate. But I guess, is anybody interested in tackling that policy for how we reference personal demographic information? Don't stress if you're not interested. We can go through this at the tomorrow group and see how people.
Yes, it is.
I don't think I can sign on yet because I feel like I'm in catch-up mode. Like I kind of tuned out for a while and then I tuned back in and the application profile was all there. So I'm just catching up, but I'll stay tuned, Mary, and see what happens and maybe I can plug in later.
Sure, I'd appreciate that. Um, yeah, maybe I'll bring that to tomorrow's group to see if anybody would be interested in working on this. But Crystal, I assume that you would be interested in working on this or no? You're just throwing it out there.
I would be interested, but I am still working on implementing the personal pronouns
Right.
one, and I've got a lot on my plate right now, so I couldn't start working on it until probably October.
Okay. And then, do you mind terribly much if I scooch the how to set up a Wikidata policy into like a comment?
Not at all.
Okay. Just so that I don't lose track of this during the other meeting tomorrow. So then, sorry, I'm just putting all my words together. Um, I feel like creating policy would probably be like ideal for handling the larger question of questionable sourcing in Wikidata. Um, but are we also, I guess, in the meantime, because I assume it takes a little bit to get policy approved, like, would it make sense for sub-projects to build their own, like, sub-pages on sourcing? What I figured.
My, I th my sense, so until we get into it, we might not know, but my sense is that that's not hard and fast enough to be a policy, that there's going to be so many moving parts in this reliable sourcing that that's more of a guideline or lists and things to consider. I I don't know, Crystal, what you think, but I suspect we'd never get consensus. We might in our community, but then when it went, it has to be the Wikidata policy has to cover everybody. So maybe it's more a resource page or a guideline. So, there's not really consistent terminology in that.
I think at the very least, if we are able to find volunteers willing to work on this,
Yeah,
having it be a local policy like for
yeah,
EMCO
yeah, yeah.
definitely makes sense.
Well, if you can, I'd be happy to work on it with someone from other places, so that we get representation from different geographical or community types. I'd be happy to work on that. So perhaps put it out and see what interest you get in the next meeting.
Let's do that. Okay.
So even if the group comes up with things to consider, and then we had perhaps a table where people from different countries or ethnic groups could actually put specific sources to, to regard highly or to be careful of, that kind of thing.
Right. Oh gosh, it just occurred to me that I probably should share my screen so that we are all looking at the same thing. Ah, it has been a day. Am I sharing the list of Wikidata listservs or list of Wikipedia listservs or the notes?
The notes.
Notes.
All right. I think this is a really great start for discussing source reliability. I'm glad that we're talking about this together. Does anyone else have any other ideas they'd like to share, especially if you want me to pass them along to the next group tomorrow? If not, then does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? Because this is the end of the quote unquote official agenda that I threw together. But
I'm just interested. We've still got a lot of people who are interested, but really haven't got a grasp yet. And we're going to look at trying to do some local training. But is there a role for this group in kind of explaining some of these decisions? Yeah, I'm not sure in the larger group whether you've got others like this or whether everyone's completely on board and feeling like they have enough knowledge to make these decisions or to vote. So I suppose I'm just wondering whether, we're not moving fast, but we may benefit from a bit more explanation, even in the online meeting, of actually working through some of this to show people how it works. It's hard for us maybe to say that, but I'm just getting a sense. I'm not sure what the sense is of engagement.
I was curious if maybe I missed a round of meetings because, like I said, I kind of like looked away for a minute and then looked back, and the documentation is amazing, and it's like the discussion page is everything is so built out. And I think that's great, and I think hopefully that'll go at least some way towards addressing kind of what you're talking about, Prue. I feel like that's a really important part of metadata modeling is being able to explain why we made a decision. But I was curious, like, did I miss a round of meetings, or did all of this building out happen just asynchronously?
So all of this building out happened asynchronously. Basically, what happened is a couple of months ago. All right.
Well,
So
I
a
don't
couple
want
of
to, I
months
feel
ago,
bad because I don't know that we totally answered Prue's question, and I kind
No,
of
this
derailed
this
it,
might
but
be,
you know,
yeah, but it might be part of it.
yeah,
yeah,
I think
okay.
it's related, right? Like, how did we come to these decisions and how do we get people comfortable being part of the decision-making body that is this EMCO intro
Yeah,
cohort, right?
yeah.
So basically what happened was, I think in one of the earlier meetings, possibly in June, we determined that it might be helpful to create an initial list of properties that all of the projects could build upon, right? And so the reason why it probably seemed like you looked away and then suddenly there was a giant list was because basically I had built it in an afternoon, right? Just a really, well, okay, more like all day, but regardless. So basically just a first pass through of what essential properties might look like and especially how they might map to MARC, because I know that a lot of our colleagues are coming from a MARC-based environment, and so we wanted to sort of scaffold their knowledge, right? So then I sent out an email to everyone, I think in like early July, something like that. Asking for feedback to happen on the discussion page. And we had like a tentative end date for the discussion and like even a tentative date for voting to start, but then we all lost track of time. The date for the voting to start came and passed, and by the time we got back to it after the LD4 conference a couple of weeks ago, we realized that there were a couple of bits that needed to be ironed out, especially the country of citizenship question. So basically all of these suggestions that were made on this page, other than country of citizenship, unless I missed one, in which case someone should holler, were added to this front page. So we explained that references are recommended for all statements. This is just a list of like a list of instances where Wikidata will scream at you if you don't include a reference, or for the case of labels, instances where references just are not possible. And anyways, I think, sorry, that has been a very roundabout way of saying, yes, it is very possible, easy to get lost because it is all done, like all of the communications are being done via email. I don't think we've really talked through yet how we might record the long-term decision-making history of this community of practice, but I think that's a good idea. I'm thinking that should probably go somewhere on this front page, maybe another tab that's like history, though history seems a little too
Yeah.
inflated given that this was only established a few months ago.
I mean, I
I think
really
even,
like, oh, sorry, Prue, go ahead.
no, oh, I was just going to say an overview of the key points or decisions, I think, is you could just say that, the quick intro, exec summary. You go, Ben.
I was just going to say, I really like, um, I love the fact that Wikimedia platforms have this discussion page. There's always like this backside. It's kind of how I think of it.
Mhm.
And I've been kind of trying to use that to document decisions for a local application profile. And I mean, it kind of like I'm feeling like I could spend a lot of time on the talk page for the COP profiles and get a lot of this. I mean, I'm just like skimming it now. I'm seeing people hash it out, you know? Um, so yeah, I don't know exactly what you have in mind, Prue, but maybe there's maybe some of it's already been written just by people going back and forth in the talk page.
I guess it's a little bit like the summing up in the old forum structure, or in a online course where you have discussion, and then someone's job is to just make the quick summary, the AI summary. Um, but Mary, would it be possible just to share or move to the tab that's got the project page?
Is it this one?
Yes, so just back to the home page of it, because I did notice there's a fairly empty projects page
There is,
tab.
yes.
So this is more about where, as we do our local ones, we would add here. Is that the idea?
Yes, that is the idea. I think everybody's waiting for us to determine project structure first, and so
Okay.
our thought was that we could, oh, no worries, Ben. Our thought was that maybe if we establish like the basic template, if you will, though not every project is going to use every item on that original map. We figured if people at least have something to work from, they can start building their projects. And I am kind of hoping that after this double meeting, I am really hoping that we can get into the nuts and bolts of talking about projects, because I really think that that's where the exciting work is going to happen.
Mm.
As delightful and fun as policy is.
Excellent.
But that is my own aspiration. I'm not speaking on behalf of all of the registry coordinators or the entire COP. And there might be other things that we might need to put together first before we start putting together projects.
So I guess the welcome page, it's kind of too much for the welcome page, but it's not enough for its own page. We've got the objectives, early adopter objectives. Maybe it's just a report against those somehow.
Maybe, but I think certainly keeping track of decisions and how they were made somewhere would make sense.
Do you have to report this back to anywhere?
I believe that we eventually have to report our Wikidata statistics to the PCC. I do not know when that deadline is. I assume that Crystal will let me know when that deadline is imminent.
The PCC actually doesn't have like their infrastructure for collecting statistics is not set up to be changed very easily. So right now, our statistics, at least for the early adopter phase, are just going to be for us. So IMAC will collect the statistics and kind of use them to promote the program, but they're not, we'll decide when they're due when we collectively decide when the early adopter phase ends. Roughly 18 months-ish from the start, but we'll figure it out. Sorry,
Another
it's so
poss
vague.
I love that.
Okay,
We'll tell
all
you after.
easy.
We'll tell you afterwards what statistics you should have collected from the beginning.
Well, no,
Um,
one of the goals of the early adopter phase is just figuring out what statistics to keep. So if the statistics aren't delivered at the end, but there is a method for delivering statistics delivered, that's great.
yeah. Well, perhaps, I mean, is it a reports tab or I'm just thinking the kind of thing that you might say in an email, but if someone just lands here and they're not part of the email discussion, just the public, I mean, it is history, as you said, Mary, but perhaps as some kind of reporting or timeline or something. Not a high priority at this stage, but it might help down the track if we just keep a couple of sentences or paragraphs as we're going along.
I agree. I think it would be better if we start recording that kind of thing now, because even now, right? I don't remember when this application profile was made. All I know is that it was made
Well,
a few months
the
ago.
date will the date will be where you when you put it on Wiki, we'll be able to tell that date.
That's true. That's true.
But actually, not using the word history is a good idea because Wikidata uses view history as a tab, so we avoid that word.
Oh, well, you'll know exactly when it's created, right? Because speaking of the history, view history, like we could go and we
11th
could
of
go,
June.
couldn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Something like
Go to application profiles, view history.
yeah, and
It
something like
all,
yeah, we'll think of a better word than history, and if we can't think of one, we'll just stick it right here.
Timeline.
Timeline. Yeah, actually, I really like timeline because then we can not only record like what we have done, but we can also record like what is coming. And the end can be report to PCC about how fantastic this project is.
Yeah, in addition to timeline, I think maybe we should also, at the very beginning, at this stage, think about how to do it more productively, efficiently. Because uh, I've done Wikidata for a while. I think it's to be honest, it's very time consuming to do it manually one by one because there's so many to fill. Um, After a while, it's kind of tedious. You know, you just go and grab the property, go and you know. So I think maybe we can probably discuss how to use tools to do batches.
Yeah.
The most difficult part to do the batch is to find out whether it is already in Wikidata. That's always the hard part. Actually, to do the batch is not difficult. That's what I found out. You can use various kind of tools to prepare the data for quick statement. And also, if you have a programmer, they can write all kinds of programs to prepare the data to get it in. But the most difficult part is not to create duplicates. I think that's the most time consuming part of it. So I think that's actually a very interesting research project, you know, how to get all those records already in the LC names batch into Wikidata. Of course, they have a limit how much you can batch, but at least we can get a workflow, slowly batch them in instead of asking catalogers to duplicate the efforts and create one by one, which is not sustainable. I mean, truly, it is very time consuming to do it if you want to include all the information. So a lot of the things, you know, as LC names, yeah, I mean, if we have, I think the creating an application profile, that's a very good start. Then you have a mapping table, like which mark field to match. Then it'd be very nice to talk to Elsie or somebody at Wikidata with the programming language, like how to batch them in reliably. I think not to create duplicates, that's the most difficult part, I think. Some of them, I'm pretty sure they're already Wikidata because I know there is this add LCID in wiki item thing. So maybe I think we should focus more on that instead of asking the EMCO people to manually add. I mean, they can add their local stuff, but those things were already created in LC names. I don't see why we copy and paste start doing that kind of work. So I'm just saying people are very busy right now. I think we probably need to, if we can, this group can create a workflow so people can do it more efficiently. A quick statement is a good one. I know people, I think if you go to various kind of a community, they have been using programming to get them in quicker because quick statement has a limit how much you can do in a batch, 50 or something. I don't remember. But they, as long as you get into them into the required format, the batch loading actually is very fast. So, but yeah, yeah, that would be very interesting to save people. I think we need to save staff time, do it more efficiently, productively instead of asking people to do it manually. Like manually is like a backup. Maybe we should do the batch because we already have a good data. I mean, I don't think you can find a better data to batch into Wikidata than LC authority record because they're all kind of you can trust it and you know. And also based on our profile we have created, actually it's very basic elementary thing, very easy to batch because a lot of things you kind of just throw them out. When you counted the property, it's not that many.
No, it is definitely not that many.
Yeah, it's very skeleton actually compared to like when you go to the Wikidata, some of the person page is very long. I mean, they include a lot. So in comparison, if we use our application profile, it's very doable to do batches.
I think it's y- part of the reason why Wikidata appeals is that it has fewer requirements than NACO and it's less stringent um, for what needs to be included and how it is formatted. It's just easier. So I think that one of the big draws of Wikidata is the ability to use Wikidata as an alternative to the name authority file because NACO work is becoming something that not very many librarians are trained in, and we can't manage identities and entities. Um, we can't manage them at scale with that tool of authority work. So shifting into identity management, I think loading all of the NAF into Wikidata is something that's achievable. Um, and I also think that we might want to think more broadly. Like, do we do we want to do that, or do we want to say, okay, you know, for librarians who aren't part of NACO, you can do this instead, and and then we can do entity and identity management at a much larger scale, and those batch tools can be used not only with the NAF, but with, you know, identifiers from national libraries all over the world and VIAF and those sorts of things. So I think we should think about our goals and what we want to accomplish using Wikidata. Because if we're just duplicating the name authority file, there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, just to follow up, I think that Li Hong brings up a really interesting point about bringing the name authority file in. I think that there are some, I mean, like you said, right, it's the matching and figuring out who already exists. That's the hard part. I know that Matt Miller at the Library of Congress had initially tried to import well, a bunch of personal names to Wikidata using the connection to VF. But because there were so many conflations in VF, he had to stop because not everything was matched correctly. So I do think Li Hong is right. The hard part is the matching. And I don't think that there's really a way to get around that at the moment, but it's certainly something worth thinking about. There was actually a discussion on the LD4 Slack on the LD4 Slack Wikidata channel about this very question yesterday, and it seems like there really is no good answer for figuring out if your person already exists in Wikidata. But that being said, I also think that Crystal's vision for Wikidata alongside NAF matches very closely with my own because ever since I saw that the National Library of Korea has their entire name authority file available as JSON to be downloaded from their website, I started to wonder, well, why are catalogers using the name authority file recreating records when the National Library of Korea has already done it? Why am I creating records for people in the Japanese grants database Kaken if an API exists and I can pull it all out and reuse it from Wikidata or from Kaken directly? Nobody has any time, and NAF is hard. It takes a lot it's a lot to learn. All of our catalogers are trained in NAF, but very few actually have reached independence. So I'm also hoping that this would be a way to give them a way to edit the entities that they need without having to do all the work of becoming independent NACO contributors. But that is my very own soapbox. What I'm saying is that you both bring up very valid points. It would be real cool if we could bring in the name authority file without counting on the VOF inflation mismatch drama. But it would also be really cool if we could just stick a bunch of other national libraries in there and reuse data without. Anyways.
Yeah, I think Crystal and Mary have all very great points. I think probably they're like just two ways to achieve the same end. When you think about if people they might not use the LCNA app but use Wikidata, if we get those LCNA app for like a national library, like a Korean authority file or German authority file, all those authority files we can get into Wikidata. And then we also help the people who are not using LCNF.
Right.
They are not reinvent the wheel. They're already there. So eventually, it's an issue of whether we want to use Wikidata as a hub. If you want to use it as a hub, you need to get them in so that people, when they want to use it, it's there. They don't have to retype it. I think it's two sides of the story. One is to try to save people time to get as much as possible through the machine in, and then people can still practice. They can enhance the record. They can get the new ones in if they find it's not in Wikidata. It's not like, there's not enough for people to do. I mean, there's like more than enough for people to do. I just think like if I know it's a vision, like we can get the machine to do batch, to do as much as possible, get in, and staff can spend time to do the ones not really in or enhance it with other details. That might be ideal. I think to do it manually as a practice is okay, but to do it like in a quantity is very difficult. First, staff don't really have that much time. They can do a few, but like getting into a bigger quantity really kind of solve the issue like the Korean authority records. I don't think that will do. So I think that we probably with all those perspectives are ideal, but I'm not sure technology wise how feasible it is. Like you said, the most difficult one is not to create duplicates. The batch is easy.
Yes.
So we need to probably can brainstorm or what. I can say some experience I had. I've been working on with a group of people for like for 2 or 3 years, 3 years now. I mean, we try to get the poet names from a poet database, local database into Wikidata. So actually, we did research like that. It's just we're lucky that poet ID is linked to a different database,
Mhm.
and that database ID is in Wikidata. So we use the badge, kind of create a lot of workflows to match. So I think there are like a 7,000 poet in that poet database. We ended up write a different queries, combing through whatever. I think there are a lot of criteria. We managed to fish out like a 4,000 or something not in Wikidata. And then we batch load those using our profile. The rest of them actually we did the manual enrichment. So that gives you some idea, but at least it saves us time to do it manually for one half of those. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Totally with you. There's a lot we should be doing in batch. Prue, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just thinking, I mean, we've done a few as well, and particularly using the mix and match tool, but it looks like, what are there, 5.5 million LC name authorities. I don't think mix and match is, an option there. Um, but if there are these smaller um, sets that perhaps already have um, an ID that we can build from, that's a possibility. It's just, there are lots of different ways of doing it, but yeah, Leong's right. The duplicate problem is is a big one. There was a Google Sheets. I think most people are using OpenRefine now, but there was a Google Sheets option as well, which might be just a little bit. I know, for instance, we have an issue here not able to install OpenRefine on work computer.
What? How
So
did you get it in one?
not core business.
Goodness. All right.
But yeah. So I think, yeah, there's quite people who have been working it. Maybe that's just another thing that we could be sharing or putting up some, these are 3 or 4, possible workflows. There's some good chat things. Do you want us to move those over into the notes at all, Mary? Or
No, I'm trying to.
just
What's in the
do the
chat
discussion?
is fantastic, but I'm also trying to keep this digestible for anyone who
Okay, yeah.
walks in tomorrow, and also for my own sanity, since I will have to digest and merge both meetings into. I mean, I would like to merge both meetings into one
Yeah.
set of action items.
So Ben, your question there, duplicating the statements.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got into it a little bit in our discussion, but um, and I'm not completely sure that I understood Li Hong's use case, but thinking about, whether it's transforming data from LCNAV to create items or whether it's transforming data from LCNAV to add statements to existing items, for people. It's interesting because, we talk about linked data as you can create a graph where a resource is described and you can connect. We have persistent identifiers, so we can connect the things that Library of Congress says about Octavia Butler with the things that Wikidata says about Octavia Butler with the things that National Library of France says about Octavia Butler. So I was just making a kind of an offhanded comment about this is always a question for me. Do I need to duplicate it over here if somebody else has said it over there? And I think some of the points that are important in this came out like, well, is there access to the data in both places? Because if I can get all the data from both places over HTTP, then it's just a matter of getting it and combining it in my application, and then I can display it or do whatever I want with it. That's all. I was just kind of doing a chat.
So getting the identifiers in is really the key thing. And that, I mean, I suppose
Right.
mix and match
Yeah.
does that. Even if you don't do anything beyond that, you've made that link.
I
Maybe
forgot about that tool. Yeah.
we're too much perfectionists.
Right.
That is certainly true.
That is true.
I'm sorry, my next meeting is ringing me. It's been really great. I really appreciate you holding a second meeting, and thank you. I look forward to reading the notes from the next one. And
Thank you
yeah,
all so much for coming.
great to meet you all. See you then. Bye.
See you.
Super.
All right. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mary.
Keep an eye on your emails. Thank you
Yeah.
very
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everyone.
much. Bye.